Thank you, choir. Thank you, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Malott. We appreciate the choir singing this evening for us. Our guest speaker this evening is the head coach of the University of Oklahoma wrestling program. He is a Scholastic Award winner in speech and debate and a speaker to over 20 schools and clubs annually. He has served as the national coach for the NWCA All-Star team, which competed in Ostia, Italy. As head coach for Cornell University, his team had the highest winning percentage in Cornell history. During that time, he was named New York State Man of the Year. Mr. Jack Spates has been an assistant wrestling coach for the U.S. Military Academy, the University of Pittsburgh, and Baptist Bible College. While coaching at West Point and Cornell, he developed many athletes who earned the title of All-American. He is the author of many promotional articles appearing in college campus newspapers all over our country. Jack is married to his wife, Darla Ray, and the father of 4 wonderful children. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our guest speaker this evening, Mr. Jack Spates.
Well, it is great to be with you this evening, but man, I was perusing a list of previous guest speakers. And amongst others, you have had Dr. George Nye, a president of a university, Dave McCurdy, a congressman, Frosty Troy, a newspaper editor and renowned political commentator, and Jack Mildren, the lieutenant governor of Oklahoma, and just think, now you got me, a wrestling coach. And I'm sure that as I stand before you, some of you are wondering, why? I mean, of all the people they could have chosen, why did they choose me? And so I thought I'd tell you. You see, quite frankly, they wanted the handsomest speaker they could find. But he said no. So then they thought they'd ask the most brilliant, insightful orator around. But he too declined. So then they asked the wittiest speaker in all the land, and he also turned them down. So finally they figured, we're 0 for 3, let's just ask the wrestling coach, and I said yes. Because I just couldn't turn him down 4 times in a row. Seriously, it is good to be here with you, and I just hope as I speak to you this evening, for your sake and for mine, that I'm good. Because as I speak to you, I'm reminded of a speaker who was addressing a group of Vietnam veterans, and he spoke to them with what he thought was great power and great passion and great eloquence. And he was done, feeling rather pleased with himself. He walked down the aisle, touching and patting the veterans as he passed, until finally he came across a young man obviously ravaged by the terrors of war. Well, taking that young man's hands in his, he looked him in the eye, and with all the feeling he could muster, he said, "Sir, I hope you get better." And with that, the young man looked him in the eye, and with just as much feeling, he said, "And sir, I hope you get better too." Well, for better or for worse, I am your speaker this evening. I must confess that not all my speeches are met with universal acclaim. Some time ago, I was driving to a banquet honoring my high school coach. My 8-year-old daughter was with me, and as we were driving along, I was rehearsing my speech aloud when she looked up at me and she said, "Daddy, how long is this going to take?" I said, "Well, not that long, honey. Why?" She said, "Because, Daddy, I'm getting tired of this." Well, as I contemplated this speech, I thought, what could I write about that my audience would not tire of? And even more, what could I speak about that might strike a note within some hearts and touch a chord within some souls? And somewhat at a loss, I did what I often do when the creative juices dry up. I went to bed. I highly recommend it. When you can't think, you're at a loss, just go to bed and lie there and think. And eventually I drifted off into a half sleep where my thoughts turned into dreams, and that's where it came to me that I would speak about dreams. Now, what does it mean to dream? Well, the Oxford Illustrated Dictionary defines a dream as a train of thoughts or images that pass through the mind during sleep. It defines to dream as to have visions, to see and hear in one's sleep. Now, each and every one of us dreams. Some more often, some more vivid, some more spectacular than others. Now, in my younger years, I could remember all of my dreams. And in my dreams, I could fly, which is a pretty good thing to be able to do in your dreams, because when the dream bad guys come and get you, you just fly away. That was the good news. The bad news is I could only fly about 8 miles an hour. So I spent my dream life perpetually floating through the air with dream bad guys nipping at my heels, and I am sure that Dr. Freud would have something to say about that. But each and every one of us dreams. But that's not the kind of dream I want to talk about tonight. For the dictionary also defines to dream as to imagine, as in a dream, to think possible. It speaks of a conscious indulgence in fancy, a castle in the air. And that's the kind of dreaming that I'd like to talk about this evening. And I would like to challenge each and every one of you as you close the door on your high school years and as you open the door to the rest of your life, to become dreamers. To imagine your own castles in the air, and then to dare to make them come true. Now, my first point this evening is this, that the great men and women of this world were dreamers. Now, Martin Luther King was a great man. He was just a man, we know, with all the frailties and shortcomings common to humanity. He loved women. We're told he borrowed sentences and paragraphs in his academic work, but nonetheless, he was a great man who touched the lives of hundreds and thousands. And Martin Luther King had a dream, and it's important to understand that at the time of his dream, a black person could be arrested for refusing to sit at the back of a bus. People of color were refused service at hotels and restaurants, and men and women were killed simply because of the color of their skin. But Martin Luther King had a dream. I have a dream, he said, that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream, he said. Yes. I have a dream, he said, that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream, he said, that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. One man with a dream helped change the course of mankind. Now, Robert Kennedy was himself a dreamer, and he said this: some people see things as they are and ask why. I see things as they could be and ask why not. Oh, if each and every one of us would think like that, if each and every one of us would see things not as they are, but as they could be, to dare to dream great dreams, because the greatness of our accomplishments is limited only by the size of our dreams. But why is it that so many fail to dream great dreams? And why is it that so many more fail to dream at all? Well, the answer is this: we have a problem. And that problem is this, that there are always those who would keep us from dreaming. There are always those who delight to wake us up and snap us back to reality. I call these people dream breakers. And you know them. They are those who cannot tolerate those who dream. You've heard them. They are those who propagate the gospel of can't. For all your life, they have told you, you can't do this. You can't do that. You're too short. You're too tall. You're too fat. You're too skinny. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You don't have this and you don't have that, so you can't do this and you can't do that. Stop dreaming. Stop dreaming about going to college because you're not college material. Stop dreaming about that collegiate athletic career because you ain't big enough and you ain't good enough. Stop dreaming about becoming an actress because you don't have enough talent, and even if you did, it's just too competitive. Stop dreaming about owning your own business. You simply do not have what it takes. Stop dreaming about that marriage and that family because you'll never make it work, and look at the one you came from anyway. What a bunch of losers. You know, when I hear dream breakers cry can't, I think of a young man by the name of David Stevens. David Stevens was a person just like you and I, except that he was born without hips. And where his legs should have been were only a pair of feet. But you know, David Stevens didn't focus in on what he didn't have. He concentrated on what he did have, and by the time he was in 5th grade, he was able to do 25 chin-ups at a time and could run the 50-yard dash in 17 and a half seconds by running on his hands and his feet. In high school, he played 2 years of varsity football. As a wrestler, in his senior season, he won 28 out of 32 matches and scored 62 takedowns, a school record at the time, and the 4th best in Arizona state history. As a senior in baseball, he hit 500, and this only should not surprise us. He set a state record for bases on balls. During one important game, David Stevens came to bat with the score tied and the bases loaded. And from the stands, a supporter of the opposing team launched a brutal verbal crusade. He said, "Come on, get him out of here. What is this, a joke? He's just looking for a walk. This is a disgrace to baseball." His third base coach, to his everlasting credit, gave him the hit away sign. And moments later, David Stevens was standing at first base, his fist in the air, having launched a game-winning 2-run single. You know what his motto is? David Stevens says, "I can do anything I want to do." And you know what? So can you. So can you. But you need people to understand you. You need to make it a part of you. You need to cling to it. Because you see, some of you have had very excellent high school experiences. And when you look into the mirror and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" the reply is something like, "Well, you may not be number one, but you're really doing pretty well for yourself." But while most of your high school experience may have been as smooth as sand, there will be rocky road ahead. My senior year in high school, I was the undefeated state wrestling champion. I was also the outstanding athlete of my school, as hard as that is to believe, and I received a Scholar Athlete Award. And so I marched off to college and began my athletic career as third team. My first semester, I took 18 and a half credits, whatever possessed me, I will never know, and finished the semester with 16 and a half credits of incomplete. I tore my sternoclavicular while wrestling the Japanese national champion, who pinned me in the process, adding insult to injury. And then I had my knee operated on. I spent half my time when I was healthy working like a banshee. I've said that before, and my wrestler said, "Coach, what's a banshee?" And the other half of the time crying in my dorm room. And if I had stock in Kleenex, I would be a wealthy man today. And unfortunately, some of you are going to follow in my footsteps. Some of you academicians are going to fall on your intellectual faces. Some of you athletic studs and studettes are going to go out and promptly get your fannies rubbed. And some of you hot young lovers are going to head off to college young and in love, and you will promptly receive a letter from your boyfriend or girlfriend, and it will go like this. Dear John. And you will think that your life is over. This fellow over here, he just looked at his girlfriend and she said to him, not me, baby, never. Right. Well, in the midst of these trials, a little voice will cry out within you, and it will say, it's over. It's over. You don't have it anymore. You can't do it anymore. So stop dreaming. Stop dreaming. And in those times, as in all the difficult times that will confront you throughout your life, you need to remember the message of David Stevens. You can. You can. You can. Now, for some of you, your high school careers, like the rest of your lives, have not been so stellar. Some of you are sitting there saying, you know, Coach Spates, this dreaming stuff, it sounds great. And I'd really like to dream. But you know, every time I close my eyes, all I get is nightmares. Because there are young people here for whom the mirror, mirror on the wall says, you know, you really got the short end of the stick. And I say that because there are young people sitting amongst us who have been abused physically, emotionally, and sexually. And from your earliest years, you've been taunted and ridiculed by your classmates because you're different. And maybe you're not all that physically attractive. And you know, you've looked around at others, and they seem to have had so much. Others are tall, dark, and handsome, slender, shapely, and beautiful, while you're short and squatty, and in the eyes of the world, if the truth be known, maybe just a little bit homely. And others, they always seem to get that new bike, that new dress, that new car, when all you got is a broken heart. And others always seem to know what to say. They fit in so easily, when the fact is that you've always been on the outside looking in, and it hurts, and you're afraid to dream for more. And it's not fair, and it's too bad. It really is. But you know what would be worse? If you allow yourself to be enslaved by your circumstances. If you allow what you do not have to overshadow what you do have and what you could have. If you would allow what you are not to strangle what you are and what you could be. You know, as I wrote this speech, I did something that I always do, and that's I look to others for inspiration. And in my research, I read about a girl of 2 who was robbed of her sight and robbed of her hearing. So unable to see and unable to hear, she was shut off from the world, sentenced to darkness, sentenced to silence. Can you just hear the dream breakers? Give up. You have nothing to live for. High school material? College material? You're not even living material. You can't. You can't. You know, at the age of 7, a young woman came into her life and painfully, painstakingly worked with her to the point where this deaf and blind girl graduated from high school. She graduated from college, Radcliffe, with honors, and eventually touched hundreds of thousands of lives through her lectures in more than 25 countries on the 5 major continents, and through her books and articles translated into over 50 languages. You may know her name. It's Helen Keller. And this young girl, in the midst of silence and in the midst of darkness, truly shut off from life, refused to bow down to life's adversities. She dared to dream. She dared to live. And you say, you can't? Did you say, I can't? You can. You can. But you need to understand this. All you dreamers and would-be dreamers out there, not a wish. And you see, some people don't understand that. They say, well, I have dreams, and what they really mean is I have wishes. Oh, I wish I could have this, and I wish I could have that, and I wish I could be like this, and I wish I could be like that. And they do not understand that blood and sweat and tears and disappointment and frustration and sacrifice are necessary to make dreams come true. You've got to work. You've got to fight. You've got to struggle, but in the midst of these trials and tribulations, you can know that they are bringing you closer to the fulfillment of your dreams, because they are an essential part of dream making. Listen once again to that same blind deaf girl who tells us the harder we work, the luckier we get. Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experiences of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Well, we're drawing to a close now, and you say, finally, I thought my high school years would never end. So how do I finish, and what do I say? Well, first, let me point out this, and that's that you never really dream alone. And what do I mean by that? You see, just as there are always dream breakers who would drag you down, who would tell you can't, there are always dream makers who, through loving and caring and giving, make the dreams of others come true. You know the name of Helen Keller, but you may not know the name of Anne Sullivan. You see, this was the woman who touched Helen Keller's life, and through her, the lives of hundreds and thousands through the years. She was a dream maker. Now listen, if you are so far down, or if one day you find yourself so far down that you cannot bring yourself to dream, look outside of yourself and dare to help another. Get involved in a prison group, a homeless shelter, a charity. Give of yourself to some young boy or girl or man or woman. Touch their lives, and as you help them build their dreams, I submit to you that you will come closer to finding your own. To our mothers and fathers out there, yours has been and is a difficult task. Recognize the nobility of what you do. You are dream makers for your sons and your daughters, even if they do not recognize it now. And if you haven't been the best dream maker, determined to do better and be better now. And you know, sometimes you get so caught up in their dreams and so caught up in the minutia of life, running here and running there, that you forget about all those little things that you wanted to accomplish. Take time to dream, and take time to make your dreams come true. To our teachers and coaches and administrators, yours is also a very difficult task. And sometimes it seems a thankless one. It wears you down. It whittles away your fire and your passion. Remember that great teacher, that great coach, that administrator that you wanted to be. And dare to be great once again. Renew yourself to hard work. Renew yourself to excellence. Renew yourself to your students who need you so very badly. They need you to be dream makers. You are dream makers. And to our graduates, we applaud you and we salute you. And we also challenge you. As you open the door to the rest of your life, do not give ear to the dream breakers. Do not give heed to those who cry can't. the voices of David Stevens and of Helen Kellers and of those who dare to dream, of those who choose to live. You can, you can, you can. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And remember to dream your dream.